Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, Jim K. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. The long-awaited, much requested feature to be able to change the location of where the blind spot camera shows up on your screen is finally here. This software release is still in the early stages, so you may have to wait a few weeks before actually getting this update, but it looks like you can pick any of the four corners of the screen for where you want this video feed to actually be. Previously, it was only in the bottom left corner, so when you hold the wheel, sometimes your arm would block the ability to see it. Another update with this latest iteration, your supported profile settings will be saved to the cloud, allowing you to sync driver profiles across multiple devices. Which is cool because if somebody else uses your Tesla, they can have their own set of recent locations and destinations, and you can keep yours separate. Tesla Japan tweeted, in 2021, Tesla customers helped reduce CO2 emissions by as much as 8.4 million tons, which is great, should be celebrated, but let's put this into context. From the IEA, in 2021, CO2 emissions in the United States were expected to come in at 4.46 gigatons of CO2. 1 gigaton is equivalent to 1 billion tons. So America was expected to come in at 4.46 billion tons of CO2 emissions for 2021. Doing some math, the reduction from Tesla customers of 8.4 million tons of CO2 divided by America's total estimate for 2021, 4.46 billion tons, is a reduction of 0.18%. Plenty of work to do. More of the same here, as Tesla just tried to open up a new service center and showroom in South Windsor, Connecticut, but the Planning and Commission authorities unanimously denied this because of the direct sales to consumer laws. And even more nonsense, one of the reasons cited, the showroom would cost jobs and hurt consumers. It looks like Singapore is finally starting to slowly get on board with EVs, as in the first half of this year, now 10% were all electric. This is a smaller market, however, it's one that Tesla just entered into not too long ago. In the first half, 1,488 EVs were registered. Tesla currently has one showroom there, and I believe right now only the Model 3 rear-wheel drive and performance are actually available. Corey from Monroe Live shared another quick video showing the pipes of the structural battery pack, so it looks like their ice blasting is still underway and slowly but surely getting that pink foam out of the way. I did listen to Ford's earnings call, and here are the takeaways. Ford is expecting a monthly 60,000 unit global EV run rate by the end of 2023. They are bringing LFP battery packs for the Mach-E next year and the F-150 in 2024, and they're trying to localize this production in North America, which will be crucial for their EV profitability. Right now, the Model E division is not profitable. They also need to bring complexity down on the blue business side, the ICE business. They're not satisfied with this. Farley said they still have too many people and jobs that need to change. They're reshaping the entire company. The current cost structure at Ford is just not competitive. There are actually instances where Ford dealers are making more money than Ford with the markups and the limited supply of EVs. Jim Farley kept reiterating how their competition is actually pure play EVs, not legacy OEMs. I thought this was funny because we always say that Tesla's real competition is not actually pure play other EV makers, it's the legacy OEMs. The good news is Ford's management is expecting some easing of supply chain issues and input cost cooling in the second half, but they said overall the industry is facing a roughly 50% shortfall of raw material supply based on the EV numbers being tossed around by automakers. Overall, the tone of the call was positive, Farley was enthusiastic, and the demand seems to be very strong for Ford's initial EVs. On that note, Farley said for 70 plus years, Ford has provided police departments with vehicles they need to protect communities. Now the F-150 Lightning is joining that list. I mean, it's not a Cybertruck, but it's better than anything with gas. To everyone that would then say,
well, at least they're making it.
Touché. Let's be honest, even healthy modern diets are usually lacking in a few key vitamins and minerals. That's part of why I've been taking Athletic Greens now for the better part of the last year after seeing Lex Friedman recommend it. AG1 is the sponsor of today's video, and every serving of this superfood drink has 75 vitamins, minerals, and probiotics that when taken consistently can support gut health, energy, immunity, recovery, and focus. You just put 1 scoop in 8 ounces of water, and I like to add a drop of AG1's vitamin D3K2 in it as well. Mix it up, and then bam, your daily immunity support is ready to go. I did spend a few years in the health and wellness industry, and let me tell you, finding a reputable company with quality ingredients is not an easy task. And further than that, if I'm recommending that my family get this product, you can be confident that I genuinely believe in it. It's also independently certified by NSF on a continual basis, so you know you're getting high quality ingredients. AG1 has offered to provide a year's supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 travel packs free of charge with every new purchase if you use my link in the description below. So if you want quick and easy support for your health, this is an excellent option. So EV tax credits are back on the table in the most promising form that we've seen. Now, 2 important things. First, this is not yet law. This is just legislation that's been agreed upon between Manchin and Schumer, so there still will be voting to be held next week. Further than that, this is not a standalone EV tax credit bill. There are actually many other things in this new Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. For the purposes of today's video, we'll focus on the $369 billion in spending allocated to energy security and climate change. In addition to the proposed EV tax credits, this bill would also include $2 billion in cash grants to retool existing auto manufacturing facilities to make EVs, and it would further provide up to $20 billion in loans to build new clean vehicle manufacturing facilities and $30 billion for additional production tax credits to accelerate manufacturing of solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and critical minerals processing. Good news for Tesla, GM, and others, that $200,000 cap per manufacturer would be removed with this bill, so Tesla would again be eligible for this tax credit, however, only select vehicles. It would once again be $7,500 per new vehicle, and a new part would be $4,000 for used EVs, or 30% of the purchase price, whichever is less. This credit deal would expire in 10 years at the end of 2032. The used vehicle credit would only apply the first time a car is resold, and it must be sold through a dealer. This will all be tracked with VIN data. Now, there are a lot of limitations. So first, for the new vehicle tax credit of $7,500, the max income for a single filer is $150,000 or $300,000 for joint filers. For the used EV tax credit, the max income for a single $75,000, $150,000 for joint filers. In terms of the MSRP limitation for the price of these vehicles, it's $80,000 for SUVs, which would be the Model Y, pickups, and vans, $55,000 for smaller vehicles, think the Model 3, and $25,000 max for used vehicles. We will circle back around to cover which Teslas should be eligible, but here's where people are getting lost. A certain percentage of the battery components by value must be made or assembled in North America, so Mexico, USA, or Canada. This percent increases over time. So for all cars made before 2024, 50% of the battery components by value need to be made or assembled in North America. And you can see the scale and how it changes with each passing year. Ultimately, starting in 2029, 100% of the battery components would need to be assembled here in North America. Even further than that, there are separate requirements for where the battery minerals used in the battery components are actually originating. Once again, it's a percentage on a sliding scale based on the year. The stipulation here is a certain percent must come from a country the United States has a free trade agreement, or it must be recycled in North America, and you can see the scale on the screen. This is to encourage production away from entities of concern, which we could probably safely assume they mean China. And yes, the $4,500 for union-made EVs is gone. Right now, there's definitely still debate on whether this bill would be retroactive as of the end of last year, meaning if you took delivery of an EV anytime after December 31st, 2021, you would actually be eligible for this incentive. The wording for the section in question is on the screen, so go ahead and pause and read for yourself. I do think the language makes it seem like it's the case this would be retroactive to the beginning of this year. It just wouldn't make any sense if the point of this is to incentivize new EV purchases. Why would you give an incentive to people that didn't need an incentive to buy an EV? At the same time though, it could just be a way to make sure people aren't delaying their EV purchase until next year into 2023. As you can see, not everyone is in agreement. Tom Randall said yes, his interpretation is that if you pay for a vehicle before the act goes into effect, but take delivery after, you may choose to apply the old subsidy rules to protect buyers who would no longer qualify under the new income cap. This interpretation would mean you only get a subsidy for a Tesla if you take delivery next year into 2023. So rounding up, and in terms of the base price, the Tesla Model 3 rear-wheel drive starts at $47,000, so that would qualify. The Model 3 long range, however, currently is $58,000, so unless they drop the MSRP by about $3,000, that currently would not qualify. However, the question becomes, with the Model 3 rear-wheel drive having LFP cells that presumably are from outside of America, would they have enough in terms of value to actually qualify? We just don't know for sure right now. With the Model Y long range at $66,000 and the Model Y Performance at $70,000, these both fall under the SUV limit of $80,000, so both Model Y variants should qualify. The Model S and X would both be disqualified. The question of how will the options or the upgrades, specifically FSD, factor into this whole equation? Will the final out the door price have to be under these caps, or will it just be the base price and then the options won't matter? There's also language that commercial vehicles weighing over 14,000 pounds would be eligible for a $40,000 tax credit, or 30% of the cost of the vehicle, whatever is less. So the Tesla Semi could qualify for at least a portion of that $40,000 credit. The argument for EV tax credits goes like this. Legacy automakers can't meet their emission targets unless there are these tax incentives to bring down the cost of these EVs and increase adoption. The simplified argument against the EV tax credit goes like this. There's already too much demand and it outstrips the EV production. So why would we incentivize an industry that doesn't need any incentives? The demand is already there. Now with this tax incentive, if another 500,000 people line up to buy Teslas, what's going to happen? Their production isn't going to increase, but the demand will, and most likely Tesla will raise prices, and effectively the government would just be spurring inflation in the automotive segment. So let me know, which side of this debate do you guys fall on? Obviously, as a consumer looking to buy a Tesla in the next 2 years, you won't find me complaining about it, but as somebody who looks at the economy from that standpoint, does it make the most sense? Would this money be better spent to actually increase production? I think you could definitely make that argument. And remember, there is some money in this bill to go toward production, but it's not a majority. Here's the financial breakdown for this Inflation Reduction Act bill in terms of where the revenue will be coming from to pay for all of this, where the investments will be going, and then the expected total deficit reduction. These are just estimates. Here we have some deep-rooted bribery and corruption going against the transition to sustainable energy, and a very alarming trend when it comes to the grid over in London. Currently, in every state except for Florida being one of those 4 states, I believe it's legal for landlords to actually own solar and battery, and then to actually sell that power to the tenants of its buildings if they actually run the operation. As mentioned, this is not legal in Florida, but there was a bill that was proposed that would then make that legal. Landlords would have been able to sell cheap rooftop solar power directly to their tenants, bypassing the Florida utility and its monopoly on electricity. I'm not going to cover all of the corruption from this article, but I will link it below if you want to read it. And according to hundreds of pages of internal documents, this Matrix company, which is basically a political consulting firm, has been working on behalf of the power companies like FPL, the utility, to protect their profits and fight the transition to cleaner forms of energy. This is not a one-off incident, it's been going on to some degree for decades. The timeline: this pro-solar bill was announced by Jose Rodriguez. The CEO of Florida's utility then says this: that Matrix consulting firm then bribed a new candidate with the same last name to run against the incumbent that proposed that new bill. They bribed this Alex Rodriguez to run, who's not a serious candidate, and they spend all kinds of money on flyers to basically unseat this other Rodriguez. This new guy steals 6,000 votes, and the incumbent that proposed the bill ended up losing re-election. And how about this? We now have a new home building ban in 3 boroughs in London because the grid can't handle any more capacity. Developers in West London face a potential ban on new housing projects until 2035. They're saying part of the problem is that there have been new data centers that have been built nearby in recent years that are using up too much power. The silver lining here is this is an excellent incentive to start building new homes with solar and integrated battery storage to at the very least make these new homes less reliant on the current infrastructure of the grid. The latest real GDP data came out for Q2, and yes, it's negative, which would mean we are officially in a recession because the traditional definition has been 2 quarters of consecutive negative real GDP. Now, for everybody saying we're not in a recession, you go ask 100 of those type of people and they'll give you 100 different answers of why this is not the real definition. Apparently, Apple is not yet done trying to get this self-driving car to market sometime by mid-decade. From Bloomberg, Apple is trying to introduce a car mid-decade that would let riders face each other like a limousine-type interior. We reported on this last week, but yesterday Rivian made it official. It will be cutting 6% of its workforce. RJ said, "We need to be able to continue to grow and scale without additional financing in this macro environment," which he said has hurt the company's ability to raise funds. With around 14,000 employees, a 6% cut would be in the neighborhood of 840 employees let go. However, none of which will be manufacturing jobs. What's that saying? Don't tell me, but show me. Well, here's Exhibit A of one of those. For whatever it's worth, Oliver Bloom, VW's new CEO, said the company's ambitious shift toward EVs will continue. Kimball Musk just exercised some options to buy around 25,000 Tesla shares, but more importantly, I think he said, Tesla is just getting started. I can't wait for the next decade of awesome from my brother and his amazing team. I second that notion. Don't forget to check out AG1 and get your freebies linked below. Please take a second to like the video if you did. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.